We are heading to the heart of Texas, where a pastor is being punished for breaking state election law. Aaron Jensen has the story. Aaron?
A miracle has happened in Texas, nonetheless. Churches have been punished for breaking state election laws that are designed to help enforce the separation of religion and government. The Texas Ethics Commission has fined a pastor $3,500 for using his church to campaign for elected office, and also fined 2 churches for donating money to his campaign. I wonder when Christians will start to take notice that religion is being co-opted by power-hungry hypocrites who think the ends justify the means. This story is from The Friendly Atheist by Hemant Mehta, published July 11th, 2024. Cynthia?
Well, oh my goodness. Gosh, begonia and Hail Mary to the Johnson Amendment. Don't you think so, Kara? When you read this, what were your initial reaction?
Well, yeah, my initial reaction was finally some consequences for blatant violations of a law that has been in place for over 50 years, 60 years, I think 70 years, actually. It's clear in recent years that politics has become increasingly part and parcel of religious practice in some communities in the United States, certainly not all. So I wasn't at all surprised to hear that something like this had taken place, but I think it is a very good sign, a positive sign that action was taken, even in Texas, the state that is my home state, where, we might not have expected those consequences to occur, but the fact that they did is encouraging that laws are still being enforced. They are still valid. You do still have to abide by them. So thank goodness for that.
I was extremely shocked that you actually had government play a role in finding her for violating John's eye, and especially in Texas. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm not in the Twilight Zone. Are you sure Rod Sterling's not? I really was thinking that. But I'm curious to know from Teo, should churches be allowed to make political contributions? And if they are, what's the potential consequence, positive or negative?
Oh, well, they are definitely negative. I have always been against churches telling people who to vote for. I don't know if you remember when certain guy Copeland, you must know him. He has been in the news sometimes. We have talked about that guy here. And he was saying that people were supposed to vote for certain orange guy. They had to vote for him because if they didn't, they were murderers. They were going to go to hell. They were going against God's wishes. And that's one of the things that scares me more about religion. And one of the things one of the ways how I think that religion is always and constantly harming us the most, because it gives people some power over groups of people that they can go and, do whatever they want, tell their followers to behave in any way they want. Here in Latin America, we had in Brazil a guy called Bolsonaro. He's a dictator, and he became the president after he decided to stop being a Christian, and he suddenly became a Protestant or evangelical guy. And he got the support of a lot of pastors that for some reason now are in positions of power in the government. And yeah, that guy has been very bad news for Brazil. Brazil was not doing well. Now it's doing worse and worse every day, and only because a group of religious people told their followers who to vote for them. So I really think that it's good that finally we see some actions taken, even if, the fine is very little, so it won't hurt much the pocket of these guys, but hey, something is something.
Yeah, I agree with that. Something is something. And, Aaron, with Teo's cautionary tale of the president from Brazil and actually how we're doing right now, how do you view the current state of separation being church state in the United States, especially in cases like?
I think we're at a very dangerous spot. Was it last year or the year before? The Supreme Court overruled the Lemon Test, where they allowed a coach in Washington to say prayers in the middle of after a football game in the middle of the field, and based on some of their other decisions, they don't really care anymore about law. They don't care anymore about precedent. They only care about history and tradition, which to them, the majority, means Christianity. So I think we're in a really, really dangerous spot as far as that is concerned. So we have to be really careful about mixing religion and government, because we have a Supreme Court that's going to probably uphold any mixing of the two. We have Louisiana. They just passed a law that requires requires the Ten Commandments to be posted in school. I have no doubt that the Supreme Court is going to let that stand, even though other lower courts probably won't. It's a really scary time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the jury is out on whether the Supreme Court, if it happens that far, we already know that because we covered that story, that the ACLU, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I believe other entities have gotten together, including some families in Louisiana, sue the Louisiana Board of Education state for actually putting in the law that Ten Commandments had to class. I think personally, and even though this is not necessarily, but I think that, Satanic Temple jump there and go ahead and say, well, if you are going to play Ten Commandments, then we should be able to play tenets, Temple, and a head of Baphomet. How about them out? Mm-hmm. But, I'm wanting to know your opinion about the whole fine that on Scott Baird, which is the pastor and the churches. Do you think that the imposed fine of $3,500 in addition to deter future violations? And if don't, what penalties think should be are violating the amendment?
Well, that's a great question. And, the short answer is no, I don't think it's going to be effective. That's a relatively low amount of money, especially for some churches. I'm not familiar with, what the financials are of that particular church in question, but we know that there are mega churches and very large congregations who would take in more than that in, one row of people, passing the offering plate on a Sunday morning in some cases. And this is a relatively low amount. I don't think it's an amount that's going to be a great deterrent. It feels more like kind of a nominal amount to me. And it may be based on the IRS has a formula for how it's calculated, I believe, based on the amount of the violation. But no, I don't think this is going to be bankrupting the church or causing anyone to really think twice. As far as what would, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I know sometimes with damages in civil cases, courts will take into account, especially against large corporations that have so much money that whatever a person is suing them for is such a small amount that, yes, it may cover that person's damages, but it's not enough to really make the corporation stop what they're doing. Kind of the big case with that people a lot of times cite is the case of the woman who was burned by the hot coffee in her lap after the company had been warned over and over again that it was a dangerous amount of coffee. And so they were hit with a punitive damage in that case above and beyond what was being asked for to make up for the damages that the person victimized by it experienced. And I wonder if maybe that might be a route to go to scale the amount in such a way that it will have an impact on the financials based on the income being reported by the churches or other organizations that are in violation. But I am not an attorney or an accountant, so others may have more qualified ideas than mine. But to your point, yeah, I think something a little stronger would probably have more of an effect.
I hear that. Well, since we're on the subject, because it seems like that we're actually going into the route of talking about, right? And especially if you're talking about implication of having a fine for violating the Johnson Act, which I'll never have, even have special polarized political time where definitely doing their damn blur the line states a lot of action are. They're actually propping up these action behavior doing. So Teo, I'm coming to you. What would you propose to better regulate involvement?
Oh, well, definitely we need a strong wall between the government and the religious and religions in general. I could go so far as to say that people who are already in power or leading churches shouldn't be able to apply to political positions, but I think that goes against freedom of people because, that could be kind of like, oh no, you're persecuting them for their religious views. I think that what could help in this case and should be done is mostly keep making sure that people don't how to say it? Yeah, that people just don't give these very generous donations just to support politicians, or don't tell a huge amount of followers for mega churches go and vote for this guy, because then, that there is corruption in there. Nobody's just saying vote for these politicians for good reasons, and sadly, these people are heard by a lot of people. So they become dangerous. I think that we do need the wall between between church and state, and keep doing this. I mean, as you said, we never see this thing done. We never see churches having to pay when they actually commit fraud or do something that goes against their statuses. I remember that we were talking about, who was it? It wasn't Copeland, but it was one of those rich guys from mega churches. I don't remember his name now, but he said that he was going to continue supporting politicians even if the church took away their right to be not to pay taxes because he needed to tell people what to do.
Yeah, I remember that was Greg Locke.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's him, Greg Locke. And yeah, I think that if he had been persecuted back then and he had been fine as he should have been, we would have less and less cases of this every day. So yeah, people should start doing that a lot more.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree that the wall that is supposed to be erected between state, you guys forgive me, just getting like that's why I'm sounding all shaky. But it has seemed like that wall is not as strong as when it first created, when the Constitution drafted and adapted Act 79, right? And a lot of times we have a bunch of Christian nationals go to convention and they do their different their own organization, also their gathering, basically talking about how the main thing that they're doing is making that wall completely irrelevant. They don't want that blurred whatsoever, and that is then using the time period, make sure that they are behaving in certain ways, doing things, they get challenged, and of course they have friends that will be able to prop up, basically co-sign on behavior, like what happened Kennedy back. He started in Alabama, he ended up Florida. Matter of fact, one of the prosecuting attorneys said that the Supreme Court shouldn't even have took up that case in the first place because the defendant moved all the way to Florida, and and it was completely after his contract was not renewed to be able to continue to be a football coach. So we're seeing these blatant things, and also, and I know that we're going to possibly talk about him pretty soon. Ryan Walsh, superintendent from Oklahoma, who basically said, and Lowenberg said as well, that it's not true that we have walls. The Constitution does. You're right, it does specific, but we do have letters from Thomas Jefferson wrote that particular amendment that said that is what the Establishment Clause meant. There is wall between to separate distinction state, because they came from a country where church and state had no separate. The monarch in England was the head of, and whatever the monarch said is what the church had to do, and they coincide in one. So that's the reason why you were able to be very dictatorial when it came to how you govern your citizens, and using religious edicts, laws, and things of that nature, not necessarily having to respect the right and faiths or non-beliefs of any person that would have to be with your nation. That's exactly what the founders did not want. And of course, we can all pontificate all day long on how the founders didn't do everything correct, obviously, right? And we're still fighting some of the same issues that we had because of the way the Constitution was created first. But at the same time, we can say that, in my opinion, they got that. So, Aaron, I have a question for you, and you can kind of round up Chick's story since you brought it up. What is the role of specifically those who happen to be the electorate, the people who have to be in even the church pews or even in the street when things like this happen? How can they be more involved in making sure that the Johnson Amendment Act stands and that this wall between religion and government actually becomes stronger and fortified?
Well, it's all about the electorate. They're the ones that have to stand up. Not only do they have to fight for it in government, but they have to fight for it in their religion. They have to go into their churches and tell their leaders to knock it off, to stop mixing government and religion. If they went into work one day and their CEO started preaching about voting for a candidate or voting for an issue, they wouldn't stand for it. But for some reason, it's okay when they go into work, into church, and it's okay for their pastor to get up and say, you should vote for this, or you should have this political stance. It's awful that they do that, and members of congregations should either tell their pastor to knock it off or vote with their feet and go somewhere else, go to another church that isn't going to do that and not give money to people that are using it. And unfortunately, a lot of these people they've found that they can use Christianity as a tool to get power and acquire power. That if they go into a church and want to be a leader and they want power, they can just convince their congregation to elect them to offices or to believe political things. And so they're just being used. And these pastors, they don't care about Christianity. They don't care about anything like that. They're just they're hypocrites, right? This guy in this article, Beard, he was completely using his church to run for city council. He used church resources to film campaign videos. He posted one of those videos on the church's YouTube page. On campaign sides, he kind of was dishonest about whether he was on or not on the city council. This is not an honest person. This is not somebody that seems very Christian to me. And I just wish sometimes that Christians would listen more to what Jesus said about identifying hypocrisy and shunning it, because Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. You blind guides," meaning pastors and leaders, "you strain out a gnat but swallow a camel." And I just hope Christians can wake up and see that their religion is being co-opted by people seeking power, not people seeking the kingdom of God and its righteousness. When did Jesus say to restrict the rights of others and to make their nations Christian nations? He didn't. He said to love others and bless people, and even bless people that cursed you and worked against you. And I hope more Christians will join us in demanding that churches stay out of our government. Hashtag not my Christian.
Well, hallelujah to that, I'll tell. And I think this situation actually serves as a potent reminder of the need to be a vigilante and protect the principles of and secular. The First Amendment was designed to prevent exactly this type of religious favor. Upholding these principles ensure that public institutions remain inclusive space for all, fostering a society that values diversity and freedom of. And if you, dear viewer and reader, believe in actually listening to more nonprofit, click here.